Chung Keng Quee. Capitan China Chung Keng Quee Traditional Chinese, Zhèng Jǐngguì. Simplified Chinese, Zhèng Jǐngguì. Pinyin, Zhèng Jǐngguì 1821, 13 December 1901 was the founder and administrator of modern Taiping in Perak, Malaysia. Appointed Capitan China by the British in 1877, he was a millionaire philanthropist and known as an innovator in the mining of tin. He was involved in many other industries including farming, pawnbroking, and logging. He was respected by both Chinese and European communities in the early colonial settlement. His survival in the chaotic era owes much to his standing as leader of the Hai San, a Chinese secret society in British Malaya during the time of the Larut Wars 1862–73, a position he is said to have held till early 1884, although in all probability he continued to remain a leading member. The old fort at Teluk Batu was built by him to safeguard the mine that he opened there. He was a member of the Commission for the Pacification of Larut and sat as one of 6 members of the Advisory Perak State Council appointed by the British. Commenting on the role of the Perak Council, Richard James Wilkinson wrote, "It is for the reader, in the light of subsequent events, to judge how far the councillors were right or wrong, and to see for himself who really did the pioneer work of building up the prosperity of Perak." In the published accounts of British rule in Malaya, sufficient prominence has not always been given to the efforts of these early pioneers. The reaper, intent on his own work, is apt to forget the man who sowed. These council minutes are the record of the work of the sowers. A study of that record will show how much the state owes to Sir Hugh Low and to his fellow councillors, especially Raja Driss, the present Sultan. Early history. Third among his father's 5 sons, Chung Keng Quee was born into a peasant Hakka family in Xinkan village, Cheng County of Guangdong Province, China. At the time of his death, the Perak Pioneer and Native States Advertiser VOL Roman 8 Taiping Saturday 14 December 1901 reports precise information as to the date of his arrival in Perak is difficult to obtain, but it is apparently certain that he has passed over 45 years in the state before he retired to Penang. It is believed that in 1841 he journeyed from China to British Malaya in a junk sent by his mother, Madam Lai, to look for his father, Chung Sing Fa Chung, Sing Fa Zheng Zing Fa, Hakka Chang Hin Fat. He had left his wife Madam Lin in China to look after his elderly mother. He is thought to have been 20 years of age at that time. Chung Sing Fa had come to Malaya as an indentured laborer during a time of great turbulence in China to make a living and support his family in China Sea First and Second Opium Wars and Taiping Rebellion. After some time, when Madam Lai received no news from her husband, she sent Chung Keng Seng Zhèng Jǐngguì/Zhèng Jǐngguì, her second son. Still receiving no news, she then sent Keng Quee. When Keng Quee arrived in Perak, he discovered that both his father Sing Fa and his brother Keng Seng were by that time well established in business. In fact, Keng Seng was so popular he was known as Liu Kong Seng, literally Thunder God Seng. His father, Sing Fa, was one of the early leaders of the Tseng Lung Association on King Street. Keng Quee entered the mining business which his father and brother were engaged in. By 1860, he controlled the Penang-based Hai San Secret Society, as well as the Larut tin fields the Hai San were associated with. Information about his career before that time is generally unknown. Names. Chung's name has been spelt in many different ways due to differences of dialect and transliteration. Apart from Chung Keng Quee, the name has also been spelt Zhèng Jǐngguì, Zhèng Jǐngguì, Chung Keng Quee, and Chang Quee. Traditional Chinese, Zhèng Jǐngguì; Simplified Chinese, Zhèng Jǐngguì; Pinyin, Zhèng Jǐngguì. Chung has also been spelt Cheng, Chan, Cheng, Chin. King has also been spelt Chin, Kung, King, etc. Quee has also been spelt Kui, Quee, Quai, Kui, and Kui. He has also been known as Tay Keng Quee Zheng for his Tay in Hokkien, A Quee, A Quai, A Kui, etc. Upon receiving his honorary title from the Chinese imperial court, he took to using the fancy names Cheng Sheng Chi, Qing Shin Thong, and Cheng Ssu when traditional Chinese, Zheng Si Wen, simplified Chinese, Zheng Si Wen. Larut Wars. Around 1848, Chi Long Jafar introduced Chinese miners to Larut, spelt Larut or Larut at that time. The original mine field, Client Paw, is where the jail at Taiping stands today. Long Jafar appointed Lo Sam from Penang as agent, and Lo Sam was associated with Chung Keng Quee. According to Chung Keng Quee in his evidence provided to the Straits government, the development of the Larut tin fields was initiated by Malay chief Chi Long Jafar by advancing money to the Chinese miners in his district to work the mines, and it was only in his son Enga Ibrahim's time c. 1858-74 that the Chinese worked the mines with their own money. At a time when Enga Ibrahim was administrator of Larut, the Chinese had increased in number, and in early 1862 large groups were formed by the Chinese, the 5 associations whose members worked in the mines of Client Paw, and the 4 associations whose members worked in the mines of Client Baharu. Mining rights were given to the Hakka 5 associations or Goquan Chinese, Wuguan or Chinese, Wuquan Hakka, Ng Kian, and the Cantonese 4 associations or Siquan Siguan. Chung Keng Quee was leader of the Hakka Goquan and the Hai San Chinese, Hai Shan Hakka, Hoi San Society. They were aligned with and began to operate his tin mines in Larut Larut, Matang in 1860. Many Hakka fled China when the Taiping Rebellion broke out there and found work in the mines of Chung Keng Quee, establishing his position over the mining area in Larut as leader of the Hai San from 1860 to 1884. Larut was destined to be plagued by 4 major wars between members of the Gihin Society Chinese. While the first of the Larut Wars broke out over land and water rights, the rivalry between the two groups already existed in Ujong Salang, Selangor, Penang, Singapore, and Kwangtung itself, where both groups fought with each other between 1855 and 1868. To many people it appeared that the trouble in Larut was merely a continuation of the trouble between the Gihin and Tuapek Kong societies in Ujong Salang in 1859, which later spread to Penang. The Larut Wars were fought between Hakka and Hakka. The Hai San miners were mainly Hakka men from Chengsheng. The first 2 battles, 1861 and 1865, were between the Chengsheng Hakka of the Hai San and the Hui Chiu Hakka of the Gihin. The last 2, 1872 and 1873, were between the Chengsheng Hakka of the Hai San and the Sinneng Hakka of the Gihin. The Hui Chiu Hakka from the Gihin from the earlier 2 battles having gone down to Selangor to join Yap Aloy, a Hui Chiu Hakka who was head of the Hai San in Selangor. Li A Kun Li Ko Yin, Ho Gai Siu, and Chin Seng Yam Chen Ye Yan, Chin Ayam Chen Ye Yan, or Sin Neng Hakka. First Larut War 1861. The First Larut War began in July 1861, when arguments over control of watercourse to their mines escalated and led members of the Hai San Society to drive the members of the Gihin Society out of Client Baru, now known as Kamunting. The governor of Straits Settlement, Colonel William Orfor Kavanagh, intervened, and the Mentry of Larut, Enga Ibrahim, was made to compensate the Gihin with $17,447 on behalf of the Sultan of Perak. Second Larut War 1865. The Second Larut War took place in 1865 and was sparked off by a gambling quarrel in June of that year between members of the two opposing secret societies. According to Parkinson in his book British Intervention in Malaya 1867-1877, the Hysan, or Takong leader in Penang was Chung Keng Quee, with Lua Sam as leader in Larut. The Hysan members took 14 Gi Hin as prisoners, 13 of whom were killed. The 14th escaped to inform his clan, and the Gi Hin retaliated by attacking the Hysan village, razing it to the ground, and killing 40 men in the process. The battle continued back and forth and spread to Province Wellesley, and the island of Penang, and other secret societies joined the fray. Both sides, exhausted, finally came to terms. An official inquiry took place, and both the Hysan and Gi Hin societies were fined $5,000 each for violating the Peace of Penang, and their leaders vanished. Soa Chiang, leader of the Gi Hin, was captured by Angah Ibrahim at Teluk Kurteng Port Weld and executed. By around 1870, there were a combined total of about 40,000 Hakka and Cantonese mine workers in the Larut district, and the mining areas between the two groups were near to each other. It is this proximity that might explain how the next battle began. Third Larut War 1872. According to Charles John Irving, then Auditor General of the Straits Settlements, and later acting Lieutenant Governor of Penang, there were about 20,000 to 25,000 Chinese in Larut around February 1872, 2,000 to 3,000 of whom were Cantonese or Macau men as he referred to them, and the remainder being Kai Hakka men from Chengsheng and Sinneng. In February 1872, Chengsheng miners had a dispute with Sinneng miners over the boundaries of some mining lands. Li Akun Li Ko Yin represented the Sinneng and attempted to negotiate, but was murdered on 16 February on the pretext of an adulterous affair. It has been believed that the Third Larut War erupted in 1872 over a scandal involving the Li Akun Lai Yakin/Lai Yakin, the attorney at Larut for the Gi Hin leader Ho Gai Sui, and the wife of a nephew of the Hysan leader, Chung Keng Quee. It is said that upon discovery, the allegedly adulterous couple was caught, tortured, put into a pig basket, simplified Chinese, Zhulong, traditional Chinese, Zhulong, and thrown into a disused mining pond where they drowned. Supposedly to avenge the death of their leader, the Gi Hin had 4,000 professional fighting men brought in from China via Penang attacked the Hysans. For the first time, the Hysans were driven out of Larut. About 10,000 Hysan men sought sanctuary in Penang. It took months before the Hysans, supported by Angah Ibrahim, recovered their Matang and Larut mines. Others hold that the alleged intrigue never happened and was merely a political fiction to justify the murder of Akun Akali Coin in a manner that would permit Takong to save face for the death sentence passed down on their leader Ku Thien Tek. For his part, the Penang riots of 1869, where Akun apparently got off scot-free. At this time, Raja Abdullah, claimant to the royal throne of Perak and an enemy of Angah Ibrahim, took sides against the Hysans and Angah Ibrahim. On 26 September 1872, Chung Keng Quee signed a petition together with 44 other Chinese leaders seeking British interference following the attack of 12,000 men of Chongshan by 2,000 men of Senning. See the petition of Chung Keng Quee and 44 others, and the humble petition of Yu, Ung Keng Sin, Soa Pang, Su Ah Food, and others. Fourth Larut War 1873. The Fourth Larut War occurred in 1873, merely a year after the previous battle. Weeks after the Hysans regained Larut, the Gi Hin, supported by Raja Abdullah, counter-attacked with arms and men from Singapore and China. Angah Ibrahim's properties in Matang were destroyed. Local Malay residents were also killed and their property destroyed. Trouble spread to Krayan, Pangkor, and Dindings. The quarreling Malay chiefs who had taken sides in the Larut Wars were now alarmed at the disorder created by the Chinese miners and secret societies. The Straits Settlement Penang Chinese, seeing their investments destroyed in the Larut Wars, sought intervention from British. Over 40,000 Chinese from the Gokwan and Sikwan were engaged in the fratricidal war involving the Perak royal family. In August 1873, Archibald Edward Harbord Anson, the last lieutenant governor of Penang, sought to bring about a ceasefire between the two parties. The two sides agreed to keep the peace pending British arbitration, with Enga Ibrahim taking responsibility for the High San and Abdullah taking responsibility for the Gi Hin. Abdullah failed so completely in his task in ensuring the Gi Hin kept the peace that the British were prompted to back Enga Ibrahim and the High San. On 3 September 1873, outgoing Straits Settlements Governor Sir Harry Ord recognized Enga Ibrahim. On 5 September, he temporarily lifted an arms embargo imposed since February, just long enough for the High San in Larut to receive munitions. In the middle of that month a British vessel got into an entanglement with some Gi Hin junks, and this led to British bombardment and capture of Gi Hin stockades at Matang and Kuala Selassie. Enga Ibrahim's Penang residence was blown up on 16 September 1873. A week later two things happened. A similar attempt was made on Chung Keng Quee's house, and Abdullah and his Gi Hin cohorts were arrested at sea and brought back to Penang, where they were eventually released, but forbidden to return to Perak. Abdullah's mission to Singapore. Meantime, the Perak Sultanate, involved in a protracted succession struggle, was unable to maintain order. Things were increasingly getting out of hand, and chaos was proving bad for the Malays, Chinese, and British. In her book The Golden Chersones and the Way Thither, published 1892, G.P. Putnam's Son's Victorian Traveller and Adventuress Isabella Lucy Bird 1831–1904 describes how Raja Muda Abdullah, as he then was, turned to the head of the Gi Hin in Singapore, Tan Kim Ching. Abdullah met with Tan in Singapore in October 1873. He was accompanied by Raja Driss, the Shahbandar, and a Penang lawyer. Tan offered to put Abdullah on the throne in return for 5/11 of all duties collected between Teluk Sera and Krayan for a period of 10 years. Tan Kim Ching introduced Abdullah to William Henry MacLeod Reid W. H. M. Reid, and Reid in turn introduced Abdullah to Sir Henry Ord on the eve of Ord's retirement as governor of the Straits Settlements. A letter was drafted by Tan and Reid on Abdullah's behalf to new incoming Governor Sir Andrew Clarke, seeking British recognition of Abdullah as ruler of Perak, British protection, and the provision of a man of sufficient abilities to live with us in Perak, and show us a good system of government for our dominions. A letter dated 30 December 1873 did not reach Clarke's hands till 9 January 1874, by which time he had already taken the first steps towards bringing Perak under British control. Sir Andrew Clarke takes charge. Clarke's main objective was to mediate peace between the two Chinese factions and settle their differences so that tin production could resume and threats to the internal security of British-held Penang would cease. Parkinson tells us in British Intervention in Malaya 1867–1877 that Sir Andrew Clarke decided to summon the Chinese factions to a conference following a meeting on or about 9 January 1874 between Chung Keng Quee and the High San headmen and Pickering, together with McNair and Dunlop, who had been sent to meet them at the mouth of the Larut River to persuade them to accept arbitration. Sir Andrew Clarke, just weeks after his arrival in Singapore, had already found evidence of the continuing disturbances in Perak and Selangor. Apart from his executive council, he talked to Tan Kim Ching. Clarke decided that both the Hai San and Gyi Hin should have access to Larut with neither side being excluded, a complete reversal of the policy of his predecessor, Sir Henry Ord. Tan Kim Ching agreed and wrote to the Gyi Hin at Penang to put this to them and advocate peace. Clarke then sent Pickering to Penang to talk to the respective headmen in Penang. Pickering gave Tan Kim Ching's letter to Chin Ayam Chen Yayan/Chen Yayan. 20 Gyi Hin headmen met through the night at the Gyi Hin Kongsi house considering Tan Kim Ching's letter. In the morning they met with Pickering and agreed to surrender their forces in 7 days' time. It was also at this time that Clarke saw an opportunity to settle the question of succession to the throne in Perak and to make use of that as a means to further British interests in the Malay Peninsula by getting the Sultan to accept a British resident. Following the surrender of the Gyi Hin to Pickering and the outcome of a meeting with Chung Keng Quee, whom Pickering also met, Pangkor Engagement. The need to restore law and order in Perak gave cause for a new British policy concerning intervention in the affairs of the Malay states, which resulted in the Treaty of Pangkor. On 20 January 1874, the Straits Settlements Governor Sir Andrew Clarke convened a meeting aboard the HMS Pluto anchored off Pangkor Island. Documents were signed aboard the ship the Pluto at Pangkor Island to settle the Chinese dispute, clear the Sultan succession dispute, and pave the way for the acceptance of British residency. Captain Speedy was appointed to administer Larut as assistant to the British resident. Abdullah was recognized as Sultan by the British and was to be installed on the throne of Perak in preference to his rival, Sultan Ismail. In actuality, there were two distinctive agreements made. The primary agreement was intended to ensure an end to the fighting between Gyi Hin and Hai San and pave the way for peaceful coexistence in future. The second, to settle the issue of succession in Perak. Tate in the Making of Modern Southeast Asia says of these, that the first one, which had been ready for over a week prior to the signing, concerned Larut, and provided for a settlement between the Hai San and Gyi Hin which both sides respected and carried out satisfactorily. The second, more recently drafted agreement concerned the succession dispute around the Perak throne and was unsatisfactory from the very beginning. Chinese engagement. Chung Keng Quee was one of the two main signatories to the treaty known as the Pangkor Engagement. Copy of treaty entered into aboard the HMS Pluto at Pangkor Island by 26 headmen of the Chinese secret societies. Chung Keng Quee and Chin Ayam, leaders of the Hai San and Gyi Hin, respectively, were ennobled by the British with the title of Capitan China, leader of the Chinese community, and the town of Larut was renamed Taiping in Chinese, meaning everlasting peace, as a confirmation of the new state of truce. Malay engagement. There were 3 possibilities for the Perak throne, and of these only one was present at the meeting. Abdullah. Sultan Ismail, who was the crowned ruler, had refused to attend. The British did not appear to know of the existence of the third possible claimant, Raja Yusuf, who was naturally not invited. The agreement that was signed recognized Abdullah as Sultan, giving Ismail the status of Sultan Muda, and provided for a British officer called resident whose advice must be asked and acted upon on all questions other than those touching on Malay religion and custom. Ibrahim's position in Larut, as granted by Sultan Jafar and confirmed by Sultan Ali, was recognized. However, as far as the chiefs of Perak, who were not present, were concerned with this agreement made between the British and Abdullah, or the British's recognition of Abdullah as Sultan, the issue of succession was settled 3 years earlier with the election of Sultan Ismail. To these chiefs the British may have proclaimed Abdullah Sultan, but his accession was not valid in their eyes, and indeed in Malay eyes, if he did not hold the royal regalia which was at that time in the hands of Sultan Ismail, all attempts at recovering these from him having failed. Pacification Commission. 3 days afterwards, Chung Keng Quee was appointed a member of Commission for the Pacification of Larut, also comprising Captain S. Dunlop. The commissioners, after due investigation and deliberation, decided to hand the mines in Klyan Paw Taiping over to the High Sands and the mines in Klyan Baru Kamunting to the Gi Hins. Perak Council. Sir Hugh Low established the Perak State Council in 1877. Capitan Chung Keng Quee was appointed a member of the State Council of Perak. There were 6 members of the council, 4 Malays and 2 Chinese, which held its first meeting at Kuala Kangsar on 10 September 1877. The other members of the council present were Raja Yusof the Raja Muda, Sir Hugh Low Resident, Captain Tristram Speedy Assistant Resident, Raja Driss Orang Kaya Temengong, and Capitan Chin Seng Yam, Chikaram of Selama being absent. His magnanimity is manifestly clear from the council minutes of Perak in papers on Malay subjects by Richard James Wilkinson, FMS Federation of Malay States Government Press, Kuala Lumpur, 1908. He was the first of 3 generations to serve on the council, his son Chung Thai Fin and his grandson Chung Kok Ming following in his footsteps. Anecdotes. Chung Keng Quee, when reminded of the Larut Wars by an inquiring visitor, dismissed the subject with an expression of distaste, Baniak Rugi, meaning big loss. See the Protected Malay States, 1874-1895. Chung Keng Quee and Chin Seng Yam, Chin Ah Yam, having made peace with each other, became fast friends, going so far as to have Ah Yam become the Chye or godfather of Keng Quee's 4th son, Chung Thai Fin. Sir Hugh Low's letter of vindication. The September 1891 issue of Harper's New Monthly Magazine, Volume 83, Issue 489, carried an article on Chinese secret societies and credited Chung Keng Quee with wealth amounting to 2 million sterling. The article also stated that Chung Keng Quee was tried for murder, an accusation that was refuted following the publication of a letter to the editor from Sir Hugh Low, British resident at Perak, in the December issue, Volume 84, Issue 499 of the same magazine. In his letter, Sir Hugh refers to Chung Keng Quee as my friend Captain Chang Ah Kwai of Perak and my old friend, and urges the editor to take steps to correct the inaccuracies published earlier, which he says do great injustice to his friend. Sir Hugh Low acknowledged that Chung Keng Quee was leader of the Go Kwan faction in the disturbances that preceded the British intervention under Sir Andrew Clarke in 1874. He also acknowledged that long after that time, when Chung Keng Quee visited China, he was accused of piracy by his rivals in the tin mining business, and while he was initially arrested and brought before the mandarins in Canton, he was triumphantly acquitted of the charge. Sir Hugh goes on to state categorically that Captain Ah Kwai, who was at that time a long-standing member of the State Council, had never ever been arrested on criminal charges where British influence prevailed, and had in fact from the very beginning been a strenuous supporter of the settlement of the state of Perak. The insertion ended with an apology from the author, Frederick Boyle, to the editor of Harper's Magazine. The relationship between Sir Hugh Low and Chung Keng Quee goes all the way back to Sir Hugh's arrival in Perak. At that time, Chung Keng Quee was getting frustrated with the management of the revenue farm that had been given over to him, and it was Sir Hugh Low who, as he recalls in his journal, laughed him out of the nonsense about giving up the farm. The two of them had many long and frank discussions about the mining business in general, as well as revenue farming and the system of advancers. On 15 May 1877, in a casual meeting between the two, Chung Keng Quee advocated the granting of land leases for the mines for periods of 21 years, arguing that this would make it easier for miners to raise money. On 11 September the same year, Sir Hugh Low made this so. For Sir Hugh Low, Chung Keng Quee represented a stabilizing factor in mining communities that had yet to settle down following the Larut Wars. His was the voice of reason admonishing the Tokays who had stirred up a riot in 1879, and it was a voice that Sir Hugh trusted and backed up. Business interests. Chung Keng Quee was involved in many different businesses, but he was first and foremost a tin man. Not only did he help his sons start out in the business, he was apt to support others as well. Between 1884 and 1889, Chung Keng Quee sublet apart the land granted to him for his mining activities to a young man starting out in the business, Fu Chu Chu. Tin mining. By 1879, there were 80 mines in operation in Larut, owned by 40 firms with an average of nearly 86 men per mine. The largest mine of all in the country was owned by the Kong Loon Kongsi in Kamunting, directed by Chung Keng Quee, whom Doyle in Mining in Larut describes as an enterprising Chinese gentleman whose appreciation of European appliances is evinced by a centrifugal pump and engine in supersession of the cumbrous and comparatively useless Chinese water wheel. Kong Loon mine employed 300 coolies, more than any other mine at that time. Chung Keng Quee was a wealthy miner who circa 1889–1895 was granted big mining concessions, including 1,000 acres 405 ha 4 km2 in Kinta. By 1887, Chung Keng Quee was the largest tin producer in Perak, accounting for almost 29,000 pikuls or 1,700 tons out of a total state output of about 220,000 pikuls, or about 13,000 tons more than what all the foreign mines put together could produce. In the early 1890s, Chung Keng Quee was reported to own some of the finest tin mines in Sorakai Kinta and Kota Larut. The government of India sanctioned the grant of a large concession in Mergui for him to prospect for tin. According to the Calcutta correspondent of the Times, this was the first attempt to encourage, on a large scale, the mining industry in Mergui. According to the IPO Echo, Chung Keng Quee owned the largest alluvial tin mine in the world, the Quan Gli mine, which employed 5,000 mining coolies. The Singapore Free Press and Mercantile Advertiser reported, the largest mine in Perak is about to be closed, the produce having become too limited to be payable. This is the Quan Gli mine of Kota, the property of Capitan Quee. This excavation has been a show place for some time, and has been visited by many persons out of curiosity because of the large scale on which it has been carried on. It was feared, some few months back, that the mine would give out, and a number of the men employed were discharged. Since then, instead of improving, the wash has diminished in value, and the owner is obliged to relinquish it. It paid remarkably well at one time. There are those who argue that his were the first true capitalist Chinese enterprises in the country, and not those of Yap Aloy. Innovation and leadership. Chung Keng Quee was the first miner to experiment with hydraulic machinery. He was a progressive miner, far-sighted and innovative, and this together with his close relationship with Sir Hugh Low helped spur on the economic development of the territory. In 1878, on a visit to his mines at Larut, Sir William Cleaver Francis Robinson, the governor of the Straits Settlements 1877–1879, was impressed to see a steam pump installed by the Perak government at Chung Keng Quee's request on the undertaking that, if successful, would be taken over and rented by the mine. Sir Hugh Low introduced the portable steam pump for draining mines in the protected states in 1878, by first demonstrating its usefulness in Chung Keng Quee's mines. Convinced by the practical results of a real demonstration, owners of large mines in Perak, Selangor, and Sunjay Ujong soon had similar pumps installed, overcoming the periodic problem of flooding that used to bring work at the mines to a virtual standstill. Revenue farming. By 1888 he held the general farm taxes upon gambling, spirits and pawnbroking of Kuala Kangsar, the North and South Larut Coast Farm, and the opium farm of Lower Perak. In 1890 he obtained the Penang Opium Farm. By 1891 he had the Kinta General Farm and the General Farm and Opium Duty Farm of Kuala Kangsar, and in 1895 he had the General Farm of Perak and the Coast and Opium Farms of Lower Perak. He acquired the Kinta General Farm in August 1890 at a considerably reduced price. In 1889, for the Pangkor settlement of 1874, Sir Hugh Low, British resident at Perak, gave over most of the Larut and Curacao opium, gambling, spirits, pawnbroking, and tobacco farms to Chung Keng Quee and his business partner, Koo Thien Take. In Penang, Chung Keng Quee and his friends and relatives made up one of three similar syndicate groups that dominated the opium farms there. Chung Keng Quee, apart from being a man of vision, was also a great risk-taker. Sir Hugh Low, in his own notes describing negotiations over the leasing out of the Perak revenue farms, compares Chung Keng Quee and Koo Thien Take. Chung Keng Quee had told him that he needed 5,000 more coolies to make the venture successful, while Koo Thien Take had talked of 200 or 300 more. Not only did he get his coolies from China, Quee also employed coolies from India. His exceptional management of the revenue farms entrusted to him helped bring fresh capital into Perak and helped him to become, by 1886, the largest financier in Larut. While he obviously was making a lot of money from revenue farming, in 1897 Sir Hugh Low, then the resident, negotiated with Chung Keng Quee, who was at that time owner of the largest mine in the country, and probably the most influential financier of tin mines in the country, to abolish the supply of opium in return for greater protection of tin mine employers from their absconding coolies and for longer working hours. From 1880 to 1897, in partnership with the Tan, Yo, Lim, Chi, and Koo families, Chung Keng Quee invested over $2.8 million to dominate all the revenue farms from Upper to Lower Perak. Tobacco farming. He had many tobacco farms in several areas in Perak, including Larut, Kuala Kangsar, Kurian, and Selama. Together with Chen Eok, he held the tobacco farms in Larut and Larut Coast between 1883 and 1885. Reputation for business success. Chung Keng Quee formed close relationships with the many British residents of Perak and built a reputation for making mining operations a success. E. W. Birch, Ernest Woodford Birch, 7th British resident to Perak, left in February 1897 to take up the post of acting British resident, Negeri Sembilan, and on 15 March 1897, while paying visits of inspection to various parts of the Negeri Sembilan, recorded in his papers, "I wish we could induce Captain Quee of Perak to enter Lukut and Labu, the Selangor Journal, jottings past and present, Vol. V. 1897, page 2. Succession. His son Chung Thai Fin, then only 22 years of age, was appointed to take over his seat on the Perak State Council in 1900, and upon his death in 1901, his business activities were managed by his son Chung Thai Fin. Chung Keng Quee and Koo Thien Take. Chung Keng Quee and Koo Thien Take were connected both politically and commercially, the politics of the day being commercially motivated in any case. Apart from the monopolies for tobacco, liquor, opium, and gambling, revenue farming in Perak that these two jointly obtained from Sir Hugh Low, British resident at Perak, in 1889, they were both heads of their respective secret societies which were allied against their common foe, the Gi Hin. While Chung Keng Quee was head of the Hai San, his ally Koo Thien Take was head of the Tua Pek Kong or Kian Tek Society. Chung Keng Quee and Koo Thien Take together represented the allied Hasan Kyan Take group of Perak Hakkas and Penang Hokkien. Both Chung and Koo were in the business of procuring, supplying, or employing coolies. Koo Thien Take, aided by Ko Sing Thai, on one occasion supplied $60,000 in goods, money, and ammunition to Chung Keng Quee and Tan Yit Hun for their mining activities and for their military activities against the Gi Hin in return for 7/10 of the percentage of the tin they produced. Chung Keng Quee and Fu Chu Chun. Fu Chu Chun originally worked for Chung Keng Quee in his Lahat mining concession. He went on to marry a niece of Chung Keng Quee, the Sri Sarawak. Chung Keng Quee had a screw steamer, the Sri Sarawak, that plied a route between the Larut River and Penang. This vessel is mentioned in various documents of the time, including personal journals. Emily Sadka, in the Journal of Sir Hugh Low, Perak, 1877, remarks about an unflattering description of the craft given in a Sabella birds, the golden chersones, and the way thither, p. 277, but the unflattering part of Bird's description that Sadka referred to was actually about the pier and not the boat. What Bird said about the Sri Sarawak was that it is a small but very useful Chinese trading steamer. Personality. Chung Keng Quee was a big-hearted philanthropist, and in his lifetime his donations, subscriptions, and sponsorships benefited many individuals and groups. Together with Chin Fat Tze Cheng Yun Nan, Chi Chun Seng, and Tai Ki Yun, he was part of a group referred to as the Five Great Sponsors. According to Lau Fong Mak, who says he is indisputably the century's biggest patron of all, Chung Keng Quee alone accounted for about 92% of the charitable contributions made by the sole three members, the Cantonese Hakka economic elite, between the years 1850 and 1910. Supporting education. Support for poor scholars in China. In the absence of Malayan citizenship laws during that time, Capitan Chung Keng Quee occasionally visited his home village in China. In commemoration of the birthday of his mother, Madam Lai, Chung Keng Quee founded and endowed a big scholarship fund for poor Chinese scholars preparing themselves for the time-honored civil service examinations. He erected a memorial arch Menfang for his mother, Madam Lai, in 1886. 5 Luck Villa, School for all Chinese dialect groups. Chung Keng Quee was a principal director of Ng Phúc Hsu Yin Wufu School in Penang. In 1893, Chung Keng Quee, already a millionaire, built a Chinese school in Penang for all the Chinese children irrespective of their dialects. Having bought over the property in Church Street, where the school, the 5 Luck Villa, also called Go Hak Tong, Ng Phúc Tong, and the United Association of Cantonese Districts was originally located, Chung Keng Quee identified a new site for the school in Chulia Street. The board membership was made up of 4 secretaries and 209 assistant secretaries. Chung Keng Quee was its chief secretary. There were nearly 1,300 donors who gave between 5,760 and 1 yuan. The largest amount, as well as the building site, were donated by Chung Keng Quee. On top of his donations, Chung Keng Quee also gave a loan of 20,000 yuan towards the construction of the new building. The CHNI Bank Society was set up by leading members of the community for this purpose, and members of the society invested at least 30 cents a month for 36 months, and the interest on these deposits, as on the capital, were used to repay the Chung Keng Quee's loan. 175 people deposited amounts from 816 yuan from Chung Keng Quee himself to 15 yuan. The new building was completed in 1898. St. Xavier's Institution. In 1895, the new double-story building he had erected together with Gan Hong Ki and Lim Ah Kai, the latter two posthumously, was completed and its inauguration took place on Thursday, 28 November at 1:30 where Chung Keng Quee and the Honorable Resident Councillor, Henry Trotter, were guests of honor. Chong Wen She Institute. In March 1901, just months before he died, Chung Keng Quee and several other members of the Hakka associations in Penang established an educational institution called Chong Wen She. The educational institution organized campaigns to encourage the Chinese in Penang to respect education. The motto of the campaigns was Jing Zai Zai Zai, or to respect the words written on the paper. The educational institution established a free-of-charge private school for all the children irrespective of their dialects. The school also enrolled the locally born Chinese children with the intention of giving them a classical education so that they would not forget about their roots. Support for temples. Tua Pek Kong Temples in Tanjung Takong and King Street. Chung Keng Quee was a principal donor to the HUC Pearl Tua Pek Kong Temple 1865 and 1868 in Tanjung Takong, Penang. Chung Keng Quee's donation of 150 yuan for the restoration of the temple is inscribed in a stone setup on the occasion, dated 1865 or early 1866, and kept at the Tua Pek Kong Temple in King Street, Penang, which the Tanjung Takong Temple is connected to. The lowest amount recorded is 2 yuan and the highest is 250 yuan. His donation of 30 yuan is inscribed in a stone 1868 set up by board members of the King Street Tua Pek Kong Temple to commemorate the gilding and varnishing of the temple. On the stone he is referred to as Chu Tiong First Class Assistant Department Magistrate. 2 other donors are called Kung Yuan, Senior Licentiate. Kwangtung and Teochew Cemeteries, Mount Erskine, Penang. He was the primary benefactor of the Guangdong/Kwangtung and Tingchu/Teochew Cemeteries 1885 and 1901 and Kek Lok Si Temple 1906. At the Kwangtung and Tingchu Cemeteries, Quang Tung Chai Tiing Chu Aishan Cemetery for Kwangtung and Tiing Chu Prefecture of Fujian is located in Mount Erskine Road. Chung Keng Quee's donation of 600 yuan towards the construction of a hall for funeral ceremonies is inscribed in a stone dated 1885. Donations ranged from 600 to 10 yuan. A donation of land to the cemetery by Chung Keng Quee and his daughter Kang Neo, also spelt Kang Nyang and Huang Jiang, is recorded in one of 2 similar stones. One of a set of 3 stone inscriptions dated 1901 records the 600 yuan donation of Chung Keng Quee made during the period from 1898 to 1900, as well as the position of secretary held under the name of Hai Ki Chan Hai Chai Chan Hai Jai Zhan, his company. Chung Keng Quee headed the list of over 250 donors, most of whom donated amounts ranging from 100 to 5 yuan. Kek Lok Si Temple/Pagoda, Penang. Kek Lok Si Chai Lo SSU/Jili Si, the Temple of Supreme Happiness, on an inscription in stone dated 1906 listing the particulars of donors. It is recorded that Cheng SSU, when Chung Keng Quee with honorary second rank, donated 6,000 yuan, the 5th largest donation. Another stone inscription, this one dated 1907, recording the origin and development of the temple. He was one of the 5 wealthy patrons from Penang whom Bao Lion convinced between 1887 and 1891 to form the core support for the construction of the temple, after having selected the site in Ir Itam. With this, Chung Keng Quee became a director or Da Zongli Great Prime Minister of the new temple. Perak Temples. Chung Keng Quee was one of the principal donors to the construction of the Yue Tingku Mayo/Sam Wang Tine, Kamunting in the late 1850s, and heads the list of donors for the construction of the Sui Chingpo Mayo in Matang in 1883. Supporting associations. Chung Association, Penang. The Te Kongsi or Te Sieng Eong Tong Zheng Shiying Yang Tang / Zheng Shiying Yang Tang or Zheng Shiying Yang Tang in Penang was first founded by Chung Keng Quee Zhèng Jǐngguì in Kimberley Street. Chung in the Hokkien dialect is Te. Penang Chinese Town Hall. He became the prominent president 1881–1883 of the Penang Chinese Town Hall, also known as Pieng Cheng Hui Quan Pi, Pieng Cheng Kung Quan, or its current official Chinese name, Hue Jen Ta Hui Tiang. Chung Keng Quee was a major donor towards the founding of the town hall, 600 yuan according to the inscription on a stone dated 1886 kept within the town hall. Founder of the Guangdong Association in Taiping. The Kwantung Hui Quan Guangdong Association along Temple Street in Taiping was founded in 1887 by Chung Keng Quee and others as an association of people from Kwangtung, Guangdong Province in South China. Penang Seng Siecheng Association. The Straits Settlements factory records show that the association was headed by Chung Yat and had 16 members in 1825. It was largely an inactive association until 1849 when Chung Keng Quee and others put up a new building for it. Seng Lung Association. While he lived, he was a patron and benefactor to the Seng Lung Hui Quan in Penang, Taiping and Gopeng. Chung Keng Quee built the current temple-like premises of the Tseng Lung Zhang Long Association in Taiping in 1888, rebuilt the premises of the Tseng Lung Hui Quan, Gopeng in 1898, and the premises of the Tseng Lung Hui Quan, Penang in 1886. The Tseng Lung Hui Quan were associations for people from Tseng Siecheng and Longmen counties of Guangzhou, Guangzhou or Canton Prefecture in South China. According to Tan Kim Hong, Keng Quee, whose father was an early leader of the association, became the chief director of the association around 1890. Principal donor to international charities. India Famine Relief Fund. In 1897, the British establishment tried to drum up support for an India famine relief drive. Penang millionaire and Delhi Bank director H.C. Yung Quan, then Chinese vice consul, contributed $200 and Chung Keng Quee gave $300 more, completely dwarfing His Excellency the Governor, who managed only $100. See also Indian famine of 1896–97. Transvaal War Fund. On the 24th day of collections for the Transvaal War Fund for widows and orphans, Chung Keng Quee donated $1,000, bringing total for that day to $16,033. In March 1900, he donated $15,000 to the Transvaal War Fund. See Second Boer War, started in November 1899 by the Straits Times in connection with the South African War. For perspective, the total amount collected was approximately $215,000, out of which $50,000 came from the government and $10,000 each came from Capitan Yap Kwan Seng and Tokay Tet Shin. Franco-Annam War Relief Fund. On many other occasions, he also contributed to various other charities, including the War Relief Fund arising from the Franco-Annam War, see Annam French Protectorate, and Sino-French War under the command of Viceroy Lai Hongzheng. He donated 100,000 taels to the Qing government to support China's war efforts against the French in Indochina. Host to China's Admiral Ting. In March 1894, Chung Keng Quee hosted in his gardens, in the name of Vice-Consul Cheng Pai Shichin Fat Tzi, a dinner to welcome Admiral Ting. See Battle of Yalu River 1894 and Battle of Waiheiwei and the Chinese Imperial fleet of warships that he commanded. These included the King Yuan Captain Lin Yanghing and the Qing Yuan Captain Yi Chu Kui. Queen Victoria's Golden and Diamond Jubilees. His munificent gifts on such occasions as the 2 jubilees of Her late Majesty will not soon be forgotten. The Perak Pioneer and Native States Advertiser VOL Roman 8 taping Saturday 14 December 1901. Support for European engineers in Penang. The Engineers Institute was probably the first of its kind in the country. Opened for the recreation and general use of the engineers who formed a large part of the European community 30%. Originally, the institute occupied rooms in Beach Street, but later moved to a beautiful double-story building presented by the Capitan Chung Keng Quee at the junction of Leith Street and Farquhar Street. On 5 March 1888, an institute was opened for the recreation and general convenience of European mechanical engineers. For some time membership was confined exclusively to engineers and mechanics, but was so popular that before long the regulations were altered so as to include deck officers and certain longshoremen. The growth and development of the institute proceeded so rapidly that larger buildings were soon required, and, by arrangement with Capitan Chung Keng Quee, a new two-story headquarters building was erected at the junction of Leith and Farquhar Streets. Upon the staircase was a beautiful stained glass window presented by Chung Keng Quee, and bearing the inscription, erected by Captain Zhèng Jǐngguì, Perak and Penang, 1901. Near at hand was a portrait of the donor. Property donations. When the Lim Ancestral Temple building on Beach Street was completed in 1866, the Kuling Tong Hall of Nine Dragons Lim Kongsi, one of the 3 Lim clan associations in Penang, moved its office there. The address was 234 Beach Street. Later, Quee Street was established when Capitan Chung Keng Quee donated his Beach Street shophouse to be demolished to create the street that bears his name. Quee Street runs beside 164 Beach Street. Source: Timothy Tai. Recognition and reward by the King Imperial Government, China. For his many acts of greatness, the Manchu Qing dynasty imperial government in 1894 conferred on him the title of Mandarin, second rank retrospectively for 3 generations. This meant that Capitan Chung Keng Quee, his father, Chung Hsing Fa, and his grandfather, Chung Tung Lin, the last 2 posthumously, simultaneously became mandarins of the second rank. In line with his elevation, he then adopted the fancy name of Shengqi, townhouse and temple on Church Street. In Georgetown, Penang, Chung Keng Quee became known as the city's great connoisseur of architecture. In 1893, Chung Keng Quee acquired 2 adjacent properties along Church Street on Penang Island. The first was the former headquarters of the Gi Hin. The Hai San had ousted them in the 1870s. The second was a Chinese school, the Go Hak Tong or Ng Phúc Tong in Cantonese meaning 5 Luck Villa. He offered the school an alternative site in Chulia Street, where a new building was completed in 1898. Chung Keng Quee converted the former Gi Hin headquarters into his townhouse and office and named this Hai Ki Chan Hai Jai Zhan, or See Remembrance Store. It has interior fittings including Victorian cast iron columns from Walter Macfarlane and Co. of Glasgow, also known as the Saracen Foundry. Macfarlane was also responsible for the beautiful iron gates and fencing of the former 5 Luck Villa building, which was converted into a personal temple Shenchi Hsu Shu, where Shenchi was his fancy name and Hsu Shu means a traditional style private family school. In the temple stands a life-size bronze statue of Chung Keng Quee. The statue was commissioned by the Engineers Institute that he had generously donated a new building to. It was created by Benjamin Cressick, and a facsimile of it was shown at the Royal Academy of Arts in 1903. On the base of the statue will be found the signature of Benjamin Cressick and an imprint, Broad and Sons, the bronze founders in Birmingham who cast the statue. Today, Hai Ki Chan is more commonly known as the Penang Peranakan Mansion. Open to the public, it serves as a museum showcasing the lifestyle, customs, and traditions of the Peranakans or Straits Chinese, an example of adaptive reuse. Roads. 2 streets in Penang were named after him, Keng Quee Street and Quee Street. Progeny. Capitan Chung Keng Quee had 10 sons, the fourth and best known of whom was Chung Fin. Chung Keng Quee had 4 principal wives or tisais, including Lim Ah Chen, whom he married early in life in China, Tan Gek Im, who survived him, and Teng Nyang, who was the mother of Chung Fin. He also had a secondary wife or Tisip Tan Ah Loy, mother of his daughter Ching Ah Su. They bore him 8 sons and 5 daughters. He also had a child, Ching Thai Gan, born 1893, alias Cheng Tai Quan, by a woman named Tai Thai. His eldest son, Thai Yong, was adopted. Sons: Chung Thai Yong, Chung Thai Fin, Chung Thai Siong. Chung Thai Siong 1855–1907 was born in Penang, educated at both the Penang Free School and St. Xavier's Institution, and went on to join together 2 important lineages by marrying 1893 Ko Chui Peng, eldest daughter of Ko Zhèng Jǐngguì Zhen Shan/Gu Zhen Shan, who in turn was the son of Ko Sien Tat, a descendant of Ko Lei Huan, the first Capitan China of Penang. He helped in the management of his father's estate and lived in his father's residence in Church Street. Daughters. Generation names and etymology. Chung Keng Quee's generational name was King, meaning picture or landscape. The generation after him, Thai, means big or large or great. The next generation, Kok, means country or land, and i.e. to do with the geography of a place. The generation after that, Chung, is the same word as China. And the generation after that, Chung, means originating from or coming from. When written out and read from the last generation, Chung, to the first generation, Keng, it reads Kong Zhongguo Da Jing, coming from China, big picture, or from China comes a great visionary. Death. Capitan China Chung Keng Quee died at the age of 74 on 13 December 1901 after a brief illness of only a few days. The Perak Administrative Report for 1901. The death of Captain Chung Keng Quee is announced. He held the title for 30 years. It is no longer required and is allowed to lapse as the protector of Chinese, working under the Federal Secretary for Chinese Affairs, is the best intermediary between the government and the Chinese. The Malay Mail, Monday, 16 December 1901. The late Capitan China of Perak is said to have died worth $10 million. The Perak Pioneer and Native States Advertiser, Vol. Roman 7, Taiping, Saturday, 14 December 1901. By the death of Capitan Chung Keng Quee, which occurred at his residence in Penang on Thursday night, one of the most picturesque figures in the history of Malaysia has been removed. Reported net worth. He made his fortune early in his life in the tin mines and revenue farms of Perak, and while lost it all during the Larut Wars, he rebuilt his empire and died a rich man. At the time of his death, he had held the Perak revenue farms for 12 years. He owned 10 mines employing an aggregate of 1,000 coolies. His property in Hong Kong was estimated at $10 million. His property in Beach Street, Penang, was valued at $1,500,000. According to the IPO Echo, he was the richest man in the Federated Malay States, and, when he died, the whole of his estate in Penang alone was worth $7 million Straits dollars. The Singapore Free Press and Mercantile Advertiser wrote, "The property of the late Chung Keng Quee is valued at $10 millions, and reported that he was the largest tin miner in the peninsula and owned a tenth part of Georgetown, Penang, in addition to property in Perak and Hong Kong at the time of his death." Final acts of charity. He was a generous man given to acts of charity, and besides Chinese educational institutions, he had given money to the free school $12,000 and the brothers' school $6,000. Funerary. He left behind a wife, 10 sons and 5 daughters, 20 grandchildren, and 4 great-grandchildren. Chung Keng Quee was buried in the Chung family burial plot in Mount Erskine, purchased beforehand by himself and his daughter Chung Keng Neo. His tomb is dated 1898. It was named Region of Long Life and Frank-Chinese epigraphy. Believed that it was built before the great man died and was probably set up on the occasion of the demise of the wife who predeceased him. In his book published in 1985, Frank declared it was the largest Chinese tomb in the whole of Malaysia, appropriate only to members of the imperial family or to the highest officials, and incorporating 4 man-sized statues, the only tomb in Malaysia with statues of this kind, called Wing Chun, permitted only for the tombs of officials of the first rank. His headstone bears the inscription, Capitan of Perak, Chung Keng Quee from Zhèng Jǐngguì, appointed by imperial patent of the Qing emperor as Tzu Cheng Ta Fu. Li Q, the digger, named his book about Taiping and its historical figures, Igua, which literally means to move country, words derived from the inscriptions on the grave of Chung Keng Quee. Although he died in December 1901, he was only laid in his final resting place in 1904. On Sunday, 11 May 1902, almost 5 months after he left this world, his remains were removed from Hai Ki Chan 29 Church Street and placed in a temporary vault awaiting his final interment. The funeral procession from home to the family graveyard, made up of people on foot and on rickshaws, was reported to have been over a mile long and included several hundred Europeans catered to by Messrs. Sarkis Brothers. Security was personally supervised by the CPO of Penang. The Straits Times reported that his funeral procession took an hour and a half to pass a fixed point. Taiping Lake Gardens. One of his mining pools was donated for public use and is today the Taiping Lake Gardens. The work began in the early 1880s. By 1893, a large area comprising swamps and abandoned mining pools was drained, leveled, planted, and fenced for a public garden in Taiping. In 1911, it was considered to be perhaps the most beautiful of any gardens in the then federated Malay states. Chung surname. Pinyin romanization, Zheng for Zheng. Chinese character traditional Big Fiv, Zheng. B5 no. 7. Meaning, serious, solemn. Wade Giles romanization/pronunciation, Chengfer. Cantonese romanization/pronunciation, Cheng. Hokkien romanization/pronunciation, Tay. Others, Chung, Cheng, Ching-esque. Hong Kong. The surname Zhengfer is about 2370 years old. According to Chung Yun Gan, the surname Zhengfer originated in an area referred to during the Han Dynasty as Yingyang Prefecture, Yingyang. The present-day location of Yingyang Prefecture is in an area about 17 kilometers southwest of Yingzi County, Yingzi Zion of Henan Province. Court cases.